Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, we're one day away from Election Day. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, feel free to give me a call, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we're at the finish line, right? This is it. Tomorrow is Election Day. When everybody wakes up, they'll be able to go vote in person. Many of you have already voted in person. It's millions and millions of people that have already voted through early voting. And then there's some old school people like me. I was planning on going to early voting, but I never made it. And I guess, old habits die hard. But I have every intention of doing it first thing in the morning, looking forward to it. And this is it, final stretch. I find it interesting. And again, maybe I live in a little bubble, but I don't think I do. I live in New Jersey, a very blue place. I'm in New York City all the time. And I can tell you that I feel like I'm hard-pressed to find somebody that wants to vote for Kamala Harris. Even my Cuban friend, who has vacillated with, voting for her and not voting for her, the gentleman that that came from Havana to Key West, Florida on a jet ski to escape communism and find the American dream, who came here to be a Democrat. He loves the Democrats. He's always been a Democrat. This weekend we hung out, and I got to tell you, he said, "You finally got me." And I said, "With what?" He said, "I just can't. I'm not doing it. I'm giving a protest vote." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you know what? I don't like this guy. I don't like Trump one bit." That's what he said. He said, but things really were better. Things were better, and I can't deny that. And he said, we've already seen what this woman can do. We know that with Biden, nothing went well. Everything that Trump did, he said, all Biden had to do was not mess up what Trump did, and he messed it up. So he finally came to his wits on this stuff. And I was so happy for him. I said, good for you. And he still wanted to fight with me about all sorts of things. But ultimately, this was my one holdout. This was the guy that I was like, oh, this guy's definitely, not voting for Trump. And he said, I'm voting for Trump as a protest to my Democrats. So I wonder how many more are out there doing the same thing. How many more people are saying, you know what? I'm giving a no confidence vote to my compadres in the Democrat Party. I don't know how many there are, but I'm going to guess that there's plenty of them. And that's how the weekend played out, right? The weekend played out with everybody crisscrossing every last battleground state, all eyes on Pennsylvania, all eyes on Wisconsin and Michigan, and visits from Kamala and visits from Trump. All sorts of things going on. And Cardi B was at an event with El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. And I found it to be just so interesting because I remember her, going on and on and on. What's the government doing with my money? What does the government do with my money? What does the government do with my money? I don't know if you remember that. I wish I had the audio to play it for you. But she was going on and on and on about how she didn't like what was going on because she was a Bernie bro. And she supported Bernie Sanders last go round and was upset at how Biden handled the economy and complained about it publicly. And she even said, I'm never getting involved in this politics no more. But lo and behold, she was at a rally with Que mala eres, which means how bad she is. And it was just that bad. I mean, it was so bad her microphone didn't work. It didn't play the teleprompter reel that she was supposed to read. Her script wasn't there. And it was really funny. Listen to this.
1 second, guys. 1 second. Okay, so I don't take lightly the call. Sorry, guys, I'm a little nervous. Guys. I've been waiting for this moment this whole life, my whole life.
Yeah, right.
I need patience over here. Patience, where are you, girl? I need patience over here. Hold on. How you guys doing tonight? How you guys doing tonight? Are we ready to make history? Are we ready to make history? Are we ready to change these 4 years? No. Are we ready to change the next 8 years? Because we're going to make sure we have Kamala Harris in office for 8 years. Thank you.
Now, it goes on and on and on. This is Cardi B and her failure, right? The failure of her teleprompter. She was in Wisconsin at a rally for Vice President Harris trying to get the vote out, and she was amongst some other celebrities, and she stood there, and her teleprompter wasn't displaying her speech. The speech that she said she wasn't going to give anymore because she was done. She was done with this whole thing. I'm a little nervous. I need patience over here. Patience, obviously, somebody that was able to help her with her teleprompter. And the whole thing was just funny. I mean, this is a professional performer who I like. I like her. I mean, yeah, she's vulgar or whatever, but I think she's humorous and she's a good performer. And it just really was interesting to see how it plays out. Where if that happened to anybody else, that I'm thinking, I don't know, just put it on the Trump side. You know, when these guys went up there, even Nicky Jam, who rescinded his support for Trump, even in that scenario, these guys weren't reading off of a prompter. They knew what they were saying, right? It was so off the cuff that Trump thought Nikki was a girl's name, right? So, I mean, it just shows you how genuine that stuff was. Whereas Cardi B here, this whole thing is scripted, and when it's not scripted, everybody falls apart. I couldn't help but laugh at that stuff. And in the same way, you've got Trump pulling out all of his last stops in Pittsburgh. He was in Pittsburgh tonight, KDKA country. You've got him going to, of course, to Wisconsin. He's also going to Michigan. So much going on. And I can't help but think that it's the energy in these last days that we want to tap into. So in a little bit, we're going to connect with somebody that's at one of the Trump rallies with President Trump, somebody who's a big supporter of President Trump. So will be joining us in a little bit. Plus, I want to get an update on what's going on with this election as we head into the 11th hour from some of the folks that are in the day-to-day of it. So keep it locked right here, folks. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
If we get our vote, there's nothing they can do. This is one of those deals. If we get our vote, we're leading every swing state, which is unheard of for the Republican Party. They're always up at the end. They always were good finishes or bad finishes, depending. Sometimes they'd get there, but you'd always go in by losing hundreds of thousands of votes. And you'd watch it like a racehorse, and sometimes they'd get there, and sometimes they wouldn't. But with North Carolina, I always got there because we won every race, every primary. So essentially, you know, they have an expression. I hate the expression, actually, but it's ours to lose. Does that make sense to you? It's ours to lose. If we get everybody out and vote, there's not a thing they can do. And if we don't, they have to get every person that ever signed anything in that horrendously dangerous party that's going to destroy our country. And it already is destroying our country. We just can't let that happen.
That, of course, is El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, at his rally in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. And he laid it out pretty clear, I thought. I want to get some reaction to that from the Strategic Communication Director of the RNC, Tommy Pigott. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So what's it looking like going into the final stretch?
Well, President Trump said it there. We have the momentum here. I mean, everything that's measurable is looking good for President Trump, but only if people get out and vote tomorrow. Only if people go to swampthevoteusa.com, make their plan to vote, bring 10 of their friends and family members with them to go vote. We have to make sure we get every single Trump vote out to the polls as possible. We've been working on that. But right now, if you look at the early vote, you look at the polls, it's clearly momentum Trump.
Now, Tommy Pigott, there's been, there were some reports over the weekend, videos that came out the end of the week last week, voting machines that didn't work, that were marking Harris, other ballots that apparently seem to be, or actually registration forms out of Pennsylvania that seem fictitious. What are you doing to counter that from the RNC perspective, and are you concerned, or is this par for the course?
Well, look, we've built an unprecedented election integrity operation at the RNC and Team Trump. We set out to recruit 100,000 poll watchers as volunteers. We are at over 230,000 poll watchers as volunteers. We have 500 lawyers, at least in every single battleground state, ready to go. Rapid response legal operations. As things have arisen, we've actually seen that operation already kick into gear. Bucks County, for example, there were reports that they were being turned away from early voting sites. We took action by first demanding a response from the Secretary of the Commonwealth in Pennsylvania, who said these sites need to remain open. And then after it continued, we took legal action and actually extended early voting to make sure that there was not voter suppression in Pennsylvania. That's one example. We have eyes on every single part of this process. If people see something, they have to report it, or they should report it. Go to protectthevote.com. That's protectthevote.com. Again, we have that rapid response legal operation ready to respond to concerns as they arise.
And for everybody that's out there that's, thinking, is it too late for me to get involved? Is there anything else I can do? What do you say to them?
Well, the biggest thing is get out to vote. Make sure you go to swampthevoteusa.com. If they already have done that, make sure your friends and family have done the same. Every single time someone is asked if they have voted, and if they haven't voted yet, they're way more likely to do it. They're way more likely to go to the polls if they're even asked, and that's why things like door knocking and phone calls are so important. But hearing it from your friends and family is such a powerful impact. So if you take time to call 10 people in your life that I want to make sure they voted, that'll have a massive impact, especially if you multiply that by millions of people doing it. That's the most important thing. Other than that, just make sure you stay motivated. Make sure you stay motivated and make sure that you're part of this movement to save this country.
Now, Tommy Pigott, we're looking at 6, 7 battleground states, and there's a lot of people with eyes on Pennsylvania, on Michigan, on Wisconsin, North Carolina, Arizona, et cetera. What are your thoughts on these swing states? The clip we just played, that's from earlier, President Trump saying we're doing good, we're polling well in those battlegrounds. It's unprecedented. That's all fantastic. But for everybody who's looking at this as a nail-biter that may have voted early, what's your message to them on the battleground states?
Well, I think the first thing is that when you're looking at those early vote numbers, we are seeing success for the Republicans. We're seeing voters come out to the polls. We're seeing what are called low-propensity voters come out and vote. And by that, we mean voters that are considered less likely to vote. Maybe they haven't voted in a few election cycles. And what that points to is higher turnout for President Trump. We're also seeing, conversely, on the Democrat side, a lack of enthusiasm when it comes to early vote. We're not seeing that same turnout the Democrats have said they need. So when you're looking at the early vote, we're seeing clear momentum for President Trump. Again, that has to continue through tomorrow. We need to run through the finish line here. But based off of current trends, what's measurable is looking good. But again, we got to make sure that we're getting every single vote out to the polls. Other than that, I just would stress again, if you've already voted, make sure your friends and family have done the same. It's incredibly powerful when someone reaches out to you to ask if you voted. It's definitely a motivator, and also make sure that people know that their voice matters. Every single vote is going to count.
Now, Tommy Pigott, everybody's looking at what's going on, and you've got surrogates for each of the candidates out there. I tend to believe a lot of what I'm hearing because I'm looking at the numbers, and it seems like the momentum is in Trump's favor. But I've got to tell you, I look at a lot of these polls, and they don't look accurate. They keep saying it's neck and neck, it's this and that. There's a handful of them out there that are really skewing in favor of Trump. But I don't know. Is it wrong of me, or tell me if I'm looking at the wrong polls? But I feel like from what I anecdotally see out there, it should be something like high 50s, 60% to 40, not this 50-50 that we keep seeing.
Well, when you look at these polls, there's been a lot of analysis from pollsters and other people that do that as a profession, that there's sometimes what's called a herding mentality, meaning that pollsters kind of try to group together to make sure that if they're wrong, they're kind of protecting their professional reputation, if you will. Better to be in the group in that sense than actually maybe putting what your results show. Of course, we'll see what polls are actually right after the election. There are clear outliers when it comes to a lot of these polls. We're seeing in several polls, for example, the Harris campaign is talking about that those polls have a Democrat electorate represented in those polls that is way more Democrat than we've seen in past elections, way more Democrats than the data even indicates. So right now, when you're looking at those polls, I think they have to be looked at in the color of the early voting data. They have to be looked at with other different data that we have. They're not just an isolated example. And when you look at that, the momentum is clearly in President Trump's corner, and I think that's the most important thing to remember. And even for those that haven't voted yet, looking at those polls, if they look at those polls and see a tight race and think, I got to get out to vote, that's the exact right reaction. Because every vote is going to matter. We have to make sure we get every single person out to vote. And so no matter what the polls say, make sure you make your plan, no matter what state you're in, whatever district you're in, make your plan and get out to vote.
Now, along with the presidential election, of course, there's going to be some new people that are swept in to Congress, both in the House and many expect in the Senate. What's your outlook on how that's going to boil down for Republicans tomorrow?
Well, one of the great things about having President Trump on the ballot is that he has huge coattails. By coattails, I mean that we're seeing then positive effects for candidates down ballot, whether in the Senate, the House, Senate, state, local races. We're seeing effects for people that haven't gotten out and voted, come out and vote for President Trump, and then they vote for other Republicans as well. And we're seeing evidence of that happening. We're also seeing a huge momentum when it comes to the Senate and to the House. And that's also one of the reasons, especially when it comes to the House, why it's so important that even if you live in California or New York, which are states that are often considered out of play on the presidential level, that's where a lot of these House races are going to be decided. The House majority may be decided in those states because there's a lot of close House districts. So no matter what state you're in, you got to get out to vote because your House district could be a key part of making sure that House Republicans keep the majority, expand the majority in the House, and that we retake the Senate. When it comes to the Senate, there's several key states where Republicans seem to be opening a rather wide lead. There's going to be some close races as well, but we're seeing the effect of President Trump on the ballot as a huge motivator for voters, where Republicans are coming out, even Republicans that don't vote quite as often, coming out, voting for President Trump and voting for Republicans down ballot.
Outstanding. Tommy Pigott. I guess last question to you. You're not in the prediction game, you're in the political game, but if you were, tell me what your thoughts are on who becomes the new speaker, not the new speaker, the new Republican leader.
That's a tough one. Of course, I'd leave it up for the Senate. If we retake the Senate, that's the focus now, and I'll let the senators then decide from there who they want to represent them or lead them in the Senate.
Sounds good. Tommy Pigott, thank you so much for being here. Folks, we're coming right back. We've got Donald Trump on the program tonight, revisiting that conversation. Plus, Kwame Kilpatrick joins us live right after this. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Many people say that God saved me in order to save America. Many people are saying that. And with your help, we will fulfill that extraordinary mission together. We're going to save our country.
While many people are grateful to President Trump for sticking in the fight, thanking God that he's there and he's fighting back against so many things, taxes and the larger government and the deep state and just doing things the wrong way, there are a lot of people behind the scenes that are really grateful for what Trump has done and for Trump's first administration, and not the least of which is a former Democrat mayor of the city of Detroit who landed on some tough legal times and has an amazing story to tell. Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick is our guest. Mayor, welcome.
Hey, Rich, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Good to hear from you.
Hey, good to be on the show. I'm actually at a Trump rally right now in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So,
what's the vibe like?
Oh man, it's action packed in here. A lot of energy. A lot of people ready to win this thing.
Amen to that, brother. Well, we have a couple of segments with you, and I want to make sure people get to know who you are as a man, what your story is like, because again, there might be Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and a couple of quote unquote Republicans that are endorsing the other side, but there are genuine Democrats. I think Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard are real Democrats, in my opinion. Yourself, a real Democrat, even though you have your own story with walking away from that, but. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I was born and raised in the city of Detroit, where everybody's a Democrat. Town is about 96% Democrat. My father was a county commissioner. My mother was a state legislator and then in Congress. So she was a big Democrat. My dad was a big Democrat. I love Democrats. I ended up being the youngest and first African-American to lead the state house, the Democratic leader of the state house. I was 29 years old. At 30, I ran for mayor of the city of Detroit. I was the youngest mayor ever elected in the history of the city. And, my gift was politics. My gift was understanding the economic diversity base of the city of Detroit. But my character and integrity didn't mature at the same level as my acumen. And I found myself, in adultery and other things, and being somebody that I can't imagine that I was right now, that I was that person. I got caught up. I ended up getting a jail sentence, and then the feds came in, and they did all kinds of things that President Trump talks about. That was just so out of. And anyway, I was sentenced to 28 years in prison. Lawyers from California to New York, New Jersey to Texas, really talked about how unfair my sentence was. And they went to the president on my behalf, me not even knowing it. A lot of people, Democrats, Republicans, white, black, Latino, and they touched President Trump's heart. I never met President Trump. I never had a moment with him in the office when he made the decision. There were 4 people in the office that I never met in my life. But I was in the jail praying, in the prison praying that the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, and like the rivers of water, he could turn it whichever way he pleases. And so I asked him to turn President Trump's heart towards me, and he did. And I received a commutation. I was spent 39 days short of 8 years in prison. I walked right out the front door into a new life. And that's pretty much my story quickly in a nutshell. And that's why I'm here today, because the Democratic Party that I led, Democratic Party that I grew up in, is no longer in existence. I mean, that party's gone. And what you have in this place...
Why do you say that, Mayor?
Just a small example. I was on the Democratic Leadership Council, abortion. My position back then as a quote-unquote pro-choice legislator was that abortion should be legal, it should be safe, and it should be rare. Now the Democratic Party is pulling up buses at the Democratic Convention doing on-the-spot abortion, right here. Just get it done. The kind of morality positions that are being opposed. There's been no creativity in the Democratic Party. Everything that the vice president proffers as her economic plan was in the DLC. Matter of fact, people can go on the Democratic leadership website and pull up the same stuff. Small business tax cuts, small business loans, all those different things she talks about, middle-class tax cuts. That was stuff I was standing on a House floor in 1998 espousing. It was all Bill Clinton stuff. And you can tell the people around her are Clinton and Obama people, because they're saying the same old bag of things that if she could really do it, she can get it done now. She could use the power of incumbency. So to stand in front of the American people and say, hey, I'm going to lower your groceries, I'm going to make everything better for you, but you don't go to work on Monday and get it done today, it's disingenuous, but it's more than that. I think it's wicked. I think it's wicked that you would do that and trying to confuse people into voting for you. And I just don't believe there's anything there, because they have sold themselves out to organizations that are just amoral. And I just cannot stand in that place anymore. And what my beliefs are now, after coming to Christ, after teaching his word, and after preaching and doing the things that I'm doing now, there's absolutely no way, even on the abortion issue, that I could hate something that God loves. And so as I saw myself grow and mature and repent, I knew that I had to be somewhere else, and the Democratic Party was not where I play. I don't believe I'm a Republican, but I'm no longer a Democrat either.
Folks, we're on with former Democrat Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. An amazing story and really quite a journey. And Kwame Kilpatrick, from you just said a lot, and I think it's a beautiful story. You went from saying you were involved and you had legal issues and you were involved in adultery and all sorts of things were happening, and you were kind of born into this political family. And here you are today. You're involved in ministry, and what was that story like? Tell us a little bit about how you got there.
I was on a prison yard, and I received that sentence I talked about of 28 years, and I was mad at everybody, mostly myself. And when you have a self-loathing and self-hatred, you tend to hate everybody else. So I was hating you, Rich, and everybody listening, because when you hate yourself and you know you messed up bad. I had 3 children at the time, and a wife that I left at home, and I just felt horrible as a man, as a person. And I stumbled into the chapel one day, and there was a man there from Yukon, Oklahoma, and his name is Bruce Smith, and he was a volunteer at the prison for more than 20 years. And he was a Vietnam vet, about 6'4", just the kind of man dialed up by Christ to disciple me. He was a tough guy, and I didn't need a cream puff. I didn't need a pie back softie. I needed somebody who was real. And
he mayor of Detroit.
He said, yeah, and I didn't want to follow somebody who I didn't think was stronger than me. And he introduced me to Jesus Christ by just yelling at me, "Hey, big fella, do you have a personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ?" And and I told him, I said, "No, I don't. I don't know what that is." And he walked me into salvation. And when I got on my knees in the back of that old chapel in El Reno, Oklahoma that day, I got up and I was a different person. And I just had to learn how to follow Christ. And over the next 6.5 years, not only did I learn that, the chaplain put me through courses and schoolwork, and I took classes outside. I ended up getting ordained. I was preaching and teaching the Bible for the next 5.5 years after that. And I walked out of there and said, I'm going to serve him to the day I die. And, I wanted to find President Trump when I got out. I walked out of a cell after being in solitary confinement for 225 days. I walked right out of the inner parts of the prison, out of the front door of that prison, and I started looking for President Trump, because nobody in the earth had given me that kind of grace. And so I just appreciated God working in his heart. And it took me 2.5 years before I actually met with him. And I met with him, and he never asked me for anything. The man didn't ask me to support him. He didn't ask me, but he was just happy that I had gotten my life together and that I had a new family and that I was moving forward. And I just thought that was just a tremendous thing to experience from him, because all I saw on television was him at rallies. But to see him, and I hung out with him from like 10 in the morning to 10 at night. And we were at the golf club, and we went to Mar-a-Lago. We had dinner, and he was the same guy the entire time. And so I just felt that was something that just overwhelmed me. When I got home, I told my wife, I said, we're going to support him for president. I said, I've met a lot of politicians in my life. I've been on Air Force One with Bill Clinton. I've been in the Oval Office with George Bush. I've been in the company of presidents. And so I've not met a person who was significantly the same from the morning to night. And I just appreciated meeting him. And I knew that his economic plan, that his toughness, that his foreign policy stance, and go him in the room with Vladimir Putin and with Shea and with Kim Jong-il would be better than anybody that the Democrats is putting up. And so I'm supporting him for president of the United States.
Outstanding. Folks, we're on with former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. He's a former Democrat. He's been redeemed by the Lord Jesus Christ. Amazing story. It really is an amazing story. And we're going to talk a little politics when we come back. He's live at the Trump rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
In the state of Michigan, we know now, and this is not me making it up, I can't believe it hasn't received more coverage, a Chinese national registered to vote and voted. And now he's being charged for doing that, but guess what? His ballot's going to count. We know at least one non-citizen's ballot is going to count in Michigan because they don't know which ballot is and they can't retrieve it. These are facts. Yeah. Now, whether that's widespread or not, I hope not, but these are things that are happening and they need to be watched at. As far as foreign adversaries, sure. I mean, Iran wants to kill Donald Trump. Iran, this has been fully documented. They are trying to kill Donald Trump. You talk about violent rhetoric. He's the only candidate in this race, and not because I wish this on anybody else, who's had not one but two assassination attempts against his life.
Right.
So, of course, we're all concerned about it.
Right. In terms of the case you talked about in Michigan, we have tracked that. The Secretary of State of that state has actually brought charges, has made that public. That individual may actually be deported. May actually be deported because there are laws in this country that punish people when they are illegal and they try to vote in federal elections. That 19-year-old is going to face some consequences.
He is, and he's going to, but his vote still counts. His vote will still be counted.
Understood.
So that is Marco Rubio, and he was on CBS News, Face the Nation, with, I believe, Margaret Brennan over the weekend. And I want to get some reaction from that from the former mayor of Detroit, Michigan, the D, right? We got Kwame Kilpatrick with us. Sir, what were your thoughts when you heard Senator Rubio sparring there with Margaret Brennan?
Well, I couldn't hear the whole thing. It got real loud in here. I don't know who they called out on stage, but they I'm up and I'm outside, but it got loud. I couldn't hear it, but
it's all good.
I heard some about the story about the Chinese national being called here in Michigan, and I didn't hear what Rubio's remarks was, what the senator's remarks were. But this is a major concern here because the Secretary of State suspended a couple of rules that would have made it easier and more protective for the ballot count and for things like that not to happen. That putting the ballots inside the machine, whether somebody had already been deceased or somebody was not registered or somebody didn't have a ballot, it would spit it back out. Those protections were not used. They said they're going to use them in 2025, and I think that was actually a bit on purpose to get it done after this election. It was intentional, and so I don't know the problems that they're having now, but I suspect that there are going to be a few problems here, and I'm just hopeful that the citizens of the state of Michigan are able to thwart that, and that the Secretary of State rises to the occasion and does what is right.
Folks, we're on with former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. He's a former Democrat, and he is supporting President Trump. And Kwame Kilpatrick, you were mayor of Detroit, a big city, one of the a powerhouse city, honestly. And when you were mayor, or even since or before, and I'm going to ask a silly question, but is it crazy for people to think that there is ballot fraud, election fraud, ballot stuffing, and things like that going on?
It's not crazy at all. One of the things that Democrats just do better than Republicans is we know how to move organizations to vote by mail. So absentee ballots in election cycles are just excellent. So, when I was a Democrat, this is something I participated in. The AFSCME, UAW, SEIU, their retirees, they can all gather somewhere. All the nursing homes, all the different places in Detroit. Senior Citizens Building, you go and you really have an art within the Democratic Party, particularly in election cycles, of going to make sure that applications are filled out and ballots are mailed out, and you're able to pick up those ballots. In Michigan, when somebody seals their ballot after their vote, anybody can take it to the election commission. And so that's one place where, you can drop off all kinds of AVs to the election commission. It doesn't have to come from the person. It can come from anybody. So, people that go and turn in hundreds of AV ballots on a daily basis after being out working the campaign in Michigan, it's customary. And it's really customary in urban communities around the country. But Michigan, one of these mature political communities, like Detroit and our communities around Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Pontiac, which are all Democratic Party towns, it happens. And so it's not absurd for anybody to think that, there's a few dead people that voted before in Michigan. Absolutely. It's not absurd. It's for people to think that some people that probably weren't citizens have voted before. And so that's not absurd. And if you're talking about a local election or an election like this one on the presidential level where a few hundred votes can decide whether somebody wins the entire electoral votes for a state, it matters. The protections of our system matter.
Absolutely. Folks, Rich Valdez here with Kwame Kilpatrick. And Mayor, I want to give everybody that's listening an opportunity to, learn about what you're working on now and support you however we can. How do we get in touch with you? How do we keep in touch with you and support the work you're doing?
Well, we launched a ministry in Georgia. Actually, I lived in Georgia since I've been home. And I'm now just in Michigan now. I've been coming to Michigan more because we just planted a church here. We just had our 5th service this past Saturday.
Amen.
And so our name of our ministry is Movemental Ministries, 2 words in one. I read a book called Permanent Revolution, and it talked about the missional movement of Jesus Christ. And I like the word that they use, movemental. So we called it Movemental Ministries, and we are a ministry that just believes that you need to know the Word of God and get to know Jesus yourself, because it's a lot of churches that they know how to do church. They know how to have church. But in this age that we're living in, we're seeing this in the Church of Jesus Christ. So many people are doing things that are certainly contradictory to the Word of God, but it's also contradictory to what the Spirit of God would say. And so I just believe that, we have to learn His Word and learn Him. And so that's what we do. We major on that because it's what saved my life. I wouldn't be talking to you on this phone but for Him. And so that's what I'm doing now, and I'm preaching around the country, preaching at church on weekends, but going around the country because I'm talking about more character and integrity, working with elected officials because, we built 5 hotels in Detroit in 5 years. Detroit hadn't built a hotel since 1989. We built a new riverfront, a new downtown. We put new housing, new streets, new roads. We hosted Super Bowls and All-Star games, things that never happened in Detroit. But nobody remembers that. They remembered that I was cheating on my wife. They remembered that I got in trouble. And what I'm trying to get young elected officials in particular around the country is that as fast as you can, learn your job, learn the body politic, you have to also spend as much time developing your character and integrity. And so I don't want anybody else to go the way that I went.
What's the website real quick before we wrap?
Our website is movementalministries.org. Ministries.org. Yes. And if you want to email us, you can email us at movemental120@gmail.com.
Outstanding. Brother, we'll be in touch again because I really enjoyed the conversation. I have a lot more questions, but no more time. God bless you. Thanks for everything, for joining us tonight, and Godspeed to you and everything you're doing.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, we're coming back. We got Donald Trump, my interview with him coming up next hour, plus lots more. 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of the program. It's election eve. Tomorrow's election day, the Monday night edition, hour 2. Our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a couple of things. President Trump was in Pittsburgh, KDKA country, just a little while ago. He's already made his way, or he's making his way, over to Grand Rapids, Michigan, for another rally. I mean, rally after rally. Trump is a machine. He's out there, and he's really hitting it hard. And this is it, right? It's the final stretch. It's the final days of the election. And we just had a great conversation with former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, a former Democrat who was just very candid about what election fraud looks like in elections and how important even a couple of hundred votes can be in a presidential election. He talked about his conversion to a life of faith from a life of corruption as a Democrat, and now how he's supporting Donald Trump, and how Donald Trump extended more grace to him than anyone else he'd ever encountered in this life. And I thought that was quite a testament. It was a great interview. If you missed it, make sure you check it out. Another great interview that we did was last winter. I sat down and I had a conversation with President Donald Trump, the 45th president, about becoming the 47th president. And that was a really interesting conversation. We reflected on lots of things, from me being born in Brooklyn, him being born in Queens, and his come up, if you will, as a real estate mogul and then turned politician, as well as a lot of other things, even this radio program and our esteemed predecessors, Jim Bohannon and Larry King. And this was a really interesting conversation we had, because it happened before anyone else had declared for the primary, right? Which he won hands down, and he really did his thing. So we'll get into that in a little bit, in the next segment. But I wanted to just redirect your attention to what's really at hand here, right? What's really at hand is the economy. What's really at hand here is immigration, the border, national security. What's going on with our foreign affairs? Who's going to be able to face off against world leaders that are trying to eat our lunch, that are trying to tank the dollar? Do you see Kamala Harris defending your interests there? I don't. I can barely see her defending her own interests there. Other than self-interest, I don't think she's got any interest at all. Maybe special interests. This is an incredibly important election, and I think every election is important, and they could become subsequently more important each and every time. Why? Because the issues become more dire when you don't have money to do grocery shopping like you used to. I went grocery shopping, I went with someone else that was grocery shopping. My girlfriend had to buy some stuff, and I was like, oh, while I'm here, I'll buy a few things. And I bought a couple of things, and I ended up spending more than she did. And she's obviously a smarter shopper than me. But I realized I bought like 4 things, and it was almost $50. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, imagine if I would have bought 10 things. Are we going to push $90? It was just, wow, is the thought that came to my mind. Americans are in a tough spot right now. It's very difficult to just do like we did during the Trump years. We just can't. And I know some people have gotten accustomed to that. And they're like, well, things in the world are more expensive. Everything in the world went up. That's true, but that's not necessarily how it is. And doesn't have to be that way. Right? This is key. I mean, even critics of Donald Trump are voting for Donald Trump. And this is as much a vote for Trump as it is against Harris. It's not like we're saying, well, he's the lesser of two evils. You might be saying that. But the reality is, if it were Trump and somebody else, I'd still pick Trump. Why? Simple. The job he did on the economy was a superior job. The job he did at the border was a superior job. Hands down. He outperformed the competition. So we'll get into some of the conversation on that with the former president and soon to be, hopefully tomorrow, next president of the United States in just a few minutes. But you've got the end of the campaign, right? It's neck and neck. Tomorrow's election day. You've got Kamala Harris and her allies spending nearly $2.2 billion trying to stop El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. Is it going to be enough? I expect not. Will the cheating be enough? I hope not. My hope is that most Americans are sensible and they're saying, you know what? The time has come. It's now time for us to do the right thing. Unlike the staff at the New York Times, right, that said, it's election day, so let's go on strike. You got like hundreds of staff members at the New York Times that decided to go on strike today. Now's not the time to go on strike, folks. Now's the time to get your people, your closest people, the people in your circle. Make sure they got one shot left, right? If they didn't do early voting, that's it. They've got election day tomorrow. This is everybody's last shot. This is our chance to come together as Americans like we did after 9/11. We agreed on everything. We agreed on the flag. We agreed on America. We agreed on retaliation against our terrorist enemies. There was so much unity, right? There was interfaith unity at Yankee Stadium. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Honestly, it really was at the time. You had to be there, right? You might look at that today and go, come on. It was fake, phony, and fraud. These people are all killing each other in the Middle East and this, that, and the other. But you know what? For that one day, for that 1 month or week or whatever it was, that time period following 9/11, people were looking out for one another, and that mattered. And that's why it's time for us to come together again tomorrow and elect Donald J. Trump, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, and make him the 47th president of these United States, along with J.D. Vance, because that's the ticket that we need. Anyway, folks, kick back, relax, turn the volume up, gather the family around, because my conversation with Donald Trump, it's a little under a half hour. I'm going to tap right into that when we come back. Of course, your calls after that in open phones across America. The phone number for that, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. Straight ahead, we're coming right back with our conversation with Donald J. Trump.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
It's November 4th, 2024, and it's the night before election night. And it was a crisp winter night in January last year. I had a great conversation with Donaldus Magnus, and we're about to get into that in a moment. But there's so much going on right now, so much conversation, so much talk, and there's a lot to discuss, a lot of great ads that are out there. I'm going to play an ad for you before we talk with President Trump. But I think it's important that we pay attention to the ads, because some of them are really putting out some really interesting information that I really think you don't want to miss. We've got an ad that's airing right now in swing states, and I think is one of the best I've heard, where Trump talks about losing our purpose 4 years ago. Check this out.
4 years ago, we took a wrong turn and lost our purpose. We lost the strength that makes Americans who we are. If we dared to speak the truth, it was called hate speech, and our values were labeled shameful. That's when everything we care about fell apart. We surrendered surrendered our borders, our paychecks, and our courage. Our patriotism was called toxic. Men could beat up women and win medals, but there was no prize for the guy who got up every day to do his job. Now we're being asked to settle for the way things are. And we're wondering if America can make a comeback. We can, because we've done it before. When we get knocked down, we don't stay down, we get up again. We fight, we fight, we fight.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
It's an honor to have our next guest, and those of you who listen to this show, you guys know that I supported his America First policies vigorously on television and radio, and you probably know him by his nickname here on this show, El Trompito. Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, Donald J. Trump, El Presidente, and, you know, he's the only declared Republican candidate in the race to become the 47th president of the United States. President Donald J. Trump, Mr. President, welcome to the program, sir.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Now, I wanna get to this poll I saw, because I remember I was a little kid, and when I was a little kid, just incidentally, when I was a little kid, there was Trump Village, and there was the Left Rack City, and there was so many real estate developments. And as I was growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn. As I was growing up, I saw that there were more and more buildings, and Trump became, like the owner of the New York City skyline. And this Trump brand was like, man, this is cool. I want to be like that guy when I grow up, right? And then all of a sudden, fast forward 20, 30 years, and you're running for president. And I thought, man, it's kind of crazy that you have a guy who's got this golden skyscraper on Fifth Avenue, supermodel wife, you got it all, and you decide, let me, kind of throw it all away in many ways, right? To become persecuted, to become the most hated and most investigated guy in America. And I always thought to myself, there had to be something really, really big there, especially when, this program used to be the Larry King Show years ago, and then the Bohannon Show, and now it's my show.
Right.
But I saw an interview that you did with Larry King, I think it was in 1987, and you said, I don't think I'm running for president, Larry. and I just thought, you had it going on then, you have it going on now, but you decided to. What was that deciding factor?
Well, first of all, he was a great guy, Larry. He was such a professional at what he did, and you understand that. If you're too tough, you can't get guests the following night, and if you're not tough enough, nobody wants to watch. He was an amazing guy for so many years, and I actually said to him, pretty strongly, I said, I don't think I'm going to run for office because I'm too honest, and you do have to be honest, but at the same time, sometimes that hurts a little bit. But I would say that nobody's done what we've done. We had the strongest border in history. We were able to cut taxes more than even the Reagan tax cuts. The biggest tax cuts in history, biggest regulation cuts in history, rebuilt the military. Sadly, so much of it went over to Afghanistan. It's hard to believe $85 billion given away. We had that in great shape. You would have never, ever, in a million years, you would have never seen Putin attacking Ukraine. That was not going to happen. Likewise with Taiwan and President Xi of China. Let's see what happens there. It hasn't happened yet, but it certainly looks like it could. But you would have never seen the Ukraine situation taking place. And all of these other things, Space Force and Right to Try and so many different things that we did. And it's really about, I want to see our country be great again. We made new trade deals that are incredible. The USMCA, Mexico, Canada, instead of NAFTA, which was one of the worst trade deals ever made by any country. It was horrible. And it's good because Mexico and Canada want to renegotiate the deal now. So obviously that worked out to be pretty good. But we've done a lot, and we would have done even more. We had the Abraham Accords. You take a look with Israel. We literally saved Israel, I think, because taking it out of, number one, we had Jerusalem and we had the capital and the whole thing and the embassy, about that. But cutting the Iran nuclear deal and ending it, terminating it was so important. Just so important. Golan Heights, another thing for Israel. So we just did a lot of things. And a lot of people say, one of the most consequential presidencies. And then we had an election which, to put it nicely, was rigged and stolen. And what we did is we hunkered down and we proved a lot of things, and we're now running again, and we're going to finish the job. We had the best southern border in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. Now the drugs are coming in at a rate of almost 10 times what they were. 2 years ago, we had the best southern border we've ever had. Now we have the worst southern border. Probably we have the worst border in the history of our country. Because I always say, and you've heard it, in history, I don't think there's ever been a border that's been like this. No country, even a third world country, would allow a border to be like what's happening to us right now. We're being poisoned.
Yeah, that's true. Folks, we're on with President Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States. Now, and you mentioned something about being too tough or not being tough, and you're right. It's a delicate balance on these interview shows. But the left within the media, they're having a field day with this recent poll. The New York Post has got this poll up saying that, a bunch of things. Basically, it's not very favorable to your campaign. And it reminds me to when I was a kid and Reagan was running, and I would hear my parents talking about this stuff. And they were saying that he wasn't going to win, and this wasn't going to happen, and that wasn't going to happen. And we saw what happened with Reagan. How do you react to this current poll that shows Biden doing better than you in a hypothetical matchup?
Well, I've had that from the beginning. I've always had it, and I had it in 2016, and we won, and we won handily against Hillary. And I had it last time, and we got more votes. We got almost 75 million votes. That's more than any sitting president in history. And in my it's not an opinion. I believe it's a fact, frankly. We won that election easily in 2020. But you had COVID and you had all these mail-in ballots and it was just a terrible thing. But even if you look at what the FBI did with suppression, you look at the 2,000 mules and you look at all of the things that happened in that election, it was a disgrace. But we did great. We got 12 million more votes, approximately 12 million more votes than we had 4 years before. I was told if we got the same 63 million votes, we win. We got much more. We got 12 million votes more, and we supposedly didn't win. But I've heard that from the beginning, and they use that narrative. They also say, we want to run against Trump, but in the meantime, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars fighting me. If they want to win against Trump, they should let Trump just, they could call off all of their Democratic radical left prosecutors because they don't want to fight us. They don't want to go against us. But they're the people of misinformation. That's what they do. I mean, the only thing they're good at is cheating in elections and misinformation. And, I call them radical left Marxists. Socialism was left at the station. They passed over socialism already. And I've had it from the beginning. They come up, and these polls are just as phony as the fake news writing. And I had polls showing me I was so far down in certain states that I could never even come close to winning. And as an example, in Wisconsin, they had me 17 points down in a poll a couple of days before the election, and you end up winning the state. And it's just terrible what they do. The polls are very crooked. And the fake news is very crooked, very corrupt and crooked. But I don't know exactly what poll you're talking. We're doing very well in the polls, and I don't know the one you're talking about. But whenever they see a poll that they usually make, they play it up big, especially the New York Post, which has gone to hell. But it's gone bad, and Fox is not the same.
Yeah, a lot of things aren't the same. Amigos, we're going to pause right here. We're coming right back with El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, catching up on a great conversation we had. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, so we're talking about Kamala's lies, Biden's corruption, so much craziness that's going on. And what I find interesting is that the media loves to turn a blind eye, but there's lots more to discuss. Now, moving off of 24 and to these recent revelations of Hunter Biden paying $50,000 a month to Joe Biden for rent. I'm thinking, you as a real estate developer, do you think you could get a deal like that in Delaware, $50K a month?
Well, for Hunter to be paying that on a house where the rent, I guess they estimated it maybe it should be $4,000, and he's paying $50,000 and paying it to the father, and they don't even know who owns the house. They think the father owns it, but in that case, he's getting money and he owns the house, which would be even more interesting, I guess. But supposedly the father's getting approximately $50,000 a month for a rent that should be a tiny fraction of that. You know, that's a lot of rent. And Delaware is a wonderful place, but that's a lot of rent for Delaware, as the expression goes. And nobody's ever heard of anything like that. So I think that's just phase one. And that's actually picked up. I'm surprised. I will say this about the media. Mm-hmm. They've really played this Hunter Biden stuff so far hot. I'm sure they'll drop it at some point. You know, I said to our First Lady, whose people love, they said, Melania, you know, this is a big thing, this money and the whole thing with the classified documents, totally unsecured, laying all over the floor of a garage and all that. She said, yeah, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. I said, you know, sadly, there's a lot of truth to that. They talk about it and nothing happens. They don't do anything about it. But I think this group of Republicans in Congress is very strong. I think that was a real unification vote. That whole thing, it lasted for 4 days. And I think in retrospect, it was a great thing. And I see unity in the Republican Party like I haven't seen in a long time. They've got to get rid of Mitch McConnell. He's a disastrous leader. They've got to choose somebody else. I mean, this guy with that $1.7 trillion that he just hands to him with no negotiation, he's just absolutely terrible. And his wife was totally China-centric. Call her Coco Chow. She's totally China-centric. That's all she cares about is China. So I think it's a disgrace that Mitch McConnell's representing the Republicans right now.
I agree. Now, I want to ask you about the differences between corvettes and skiffs, because apparently you have a skiff at Mar-a-Lago where you can deal with your classified material, but President Biden kept his classified materials in his garage with a Corvette. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you this. We had a skiff. I don't know that we have it now. I think they took a lot of stuff out of here. But we had a skiff. But Mar-a-Lago is a very secure place, very powerful place. We've got guards, and we also have Secret Service. And the room was locked, and it was, it's a very secure environment. And people can't get in to start off. You know, it's very hard to get in to start off with. When you look at a garage with a flimsy door in front and that's open, and he's got papers all over the floor, and there's no security, there's no guard, there's no Secret Service. And, you know, the other thing is I have the right to declassify, whereas vice presidents don't have that right. And if you look at the Presidential Records Act, according to that, I did everything perfectly. This was done absolutely well, absolutely. You negotiate with NARA. Now, NARA is a problem. They started this whole thing. NARA, they have, as you know, the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights red flagged because they think they're dangerous documents. So... You know, when you see that, Rich, you say, well, that's a little bit strange. But they have, think of it, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are red flag, dangerous documents, or something like that. And, you know, that's where they're coming from. So it's pretty sad. But the media is really hitting Biden on this stuff. It's a little bit surprising. I thought they'd slough it off, and they've lost credibility. Their ratings are way down. By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations.
Thank you,
somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great. But, you know, the ratings are down for a lot of the fake news media. Those night shows, they have no talent. You look at Fallon and you look at Kimmel and the other character on CBS. They have no talent whatsoever. They're not funny. They're sad. And those ratings are down to the lowest point they've ever been for that hour. All of them. They're all
with
doing
programs
badly.
like America at Night with Rich Valdez and Donald Trump as a guest, who's going to watch late night TV? Come on.
Who would want to? I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
President Trump, in the final minute we have, I know there's always critics out there that say things. Trump is toxic. Trump is this. It's time for him to move on, this, that, and yeah. What do you say to them, whether they're Republicans or Democrats that are listening right now? What's your response to that critique?
Well, so we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, actually, if you look at what we did for our 4 years, but just prior to COVID. And then I rebuilt it again and handed over something where the stock market was even higher. But we had the greatest economy. We had the greatest military. We had no inflation. We had no Ukraine being attacked by Russia and all of the money that we're spending now and all of those people that are being killed and decimated and the cities are being destroyed. Should have never happened. Would have never, ever happened. And sometimes they say, oh, gee, but he's nasty. I have to be nasty because I have to defend myself and I have to defend MAGA. Have to do it, Rich.
Absolutely. Well, sir, thank you for being with us and for making America great again.
Well, thank you. Great show. Thanks, Rich.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you until 1 a.m. Eastern Time. It's election eve, election night eve, and we're bringing you the most comprehensive coverage live. Very few live shows in this time slot, and this is where we get to shine. Live from 10 p.m. at night to 1 a.m. Polls close at 9 o'clock in most places, so we'll be bringing you the most up-to-the-minute stuff we can tomorrow night. But tonight, a great conversation from Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, and of course, revisiting my conversation, reflecting on the conversation with President Donald Trump. And that's why I endorsed him early on. That's why I've given him my support, because he's the guy for the job. Hands down. You name it, whether it's the economy, whether it's national security, whether it's immigration, all winning strategies. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts and more. Let's go to Robert, Altoona, Pennsylvania, WEEU. Go for it.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, obviously Pennsylvania here is going to be, I think we're going to decide the whole thing. And I went and did it early voting this weekend, and everyone is talking about President Trump. I didn't hear anything about Harris. The two things everyone's talking about is people loved how he simulated the on
What's
Saturday.
That? I knew when I saw Robert in Altoona, I was going to get some flack here, because I don't think you get WEEU in Altoona. But there's always a troll out there that wants to say something, and I don't know how much of that America heard, but he was saying some pretty ugly things. And again, this is what they've got, right? If there were liberal radio out there, I can guarantee you're not hearing Trumpers call in there and say vulgarities, but you will hear them calling here and saying vulgarities because they're desperate. They're grasping at straws. They detest me. They detest Trump. They detest you. They detest our flag, our country. They detest free speech. This is the idea that we're against. The good news is I think there are more people that don't hate everything and everyone and live their lives through hate-filled vision than there are people that actually operate in love, people that love this country, love their families, and want to see a beautiful future for their children. And thank God for that, right? Anyway, we continue. Where do we go from here? I want to go to Jamie calling us from Canton, Ohio, WNIR. Jamie, are you also calling to bust my stones as a troll, or do you have something serious to say?
No, I have something serious. That I would just like to say that I'm from California, born and raised, and I moved out here to Ohio 30-some years ago. But my parents are still out there, and my father ended up not working after the COVID because he was,
right,
laid off. And so now they're both on Social Security, and, their money is being sucked out through the high prices that California obviously has. And their prescriptions are awful, off the chart. I do think that Trump would have a lot better outcome for them. My mom is a preacher, and she's saying that Trump absolutely helps the churches.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, it's Trump is I think the guy for the job. If you've got elderly parents, I can tell you, I had elderly parents, and my dad was alive long enough to see that Trump was running. He was actually really happy about it. My mom had passed prior to, but I think the government isn't going to operate as efficiently. It has not been operating efficiently, and it won't operate efficiently with Harris, right? We saw what happened with the Biden-Harris administration. Harris-Walz administration is going to be equally as disastrous, if not more. And that, I think the writing's on the wall. The proof is in the pudding. We have years and years of experience at this point, right? What are people waiting for? It's time for us to get to the polls and pull that lever for Donald Trump, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. Jamie in Canton, Ohio on WNIR, thank you for your call. Let me see, where do we go from here? Let's go to Paul. Paul's calling us from Boise, Idaho, KBFI. Paul, go right ahead. Welcome.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
It's great to see the next president of the United States using as much energy as the energy bunny. That's why he can run circles around him. I'm amazed, truly amazed. If I was to give him a prescription, I'd say 2 days off, get in touch with your family, play 18 holes, and I hope somebody's on getting a Trump mobile, like the Pope mobile. Get one ready for him so that when he plays golf, he's got some protection other than the people that are carrying the automatic weapons. I really believe that it's a necessity that he has one of those. That's how I feel.
Yeah, well, listen, Paul, I don't think you're wrong. I think Trump needs to be in the most secure mobile possible, and I think it's likely the Beast, right? That triple-layered, bulletproof presidential SUV or limo, whichever one he's in at the time. I think those things are literally like unstoppable. But good point. Obviously, he needs some well-needed R&R. I think the good news about Trump, he's one of those guys that thrives in success. He thrives with the hard day's work. You could see when he does these rallies, the guy comes to life. He's energized, and that's the beauty of that. I think he recharges as he's working. I don't know that, and probably on the golf course, but yeah, I don't know if Trump is a beach guy like me, right? You want me to recharge? Put me on a beach for a few hours or a few days and let me really soak in the sun. Oh man, I love that stuff. So I want to move to Florida. But excellent point. I thank you for the call, Paul. God bless you, brother. And let me see. Where do we go? We continue. Let's go to Andrew, Clinton, Illinois, WHOW. Andrew, what's going on?
Hey, good evening. As always, Mr. Valdez. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to just express how my pride to you and your audience tonight regarding a young lady that works at the restaurant that I'm a manager at. She's a server, real bright young lady. About a month ago, I just kind of casually asked her if she was registered to vote. She just turned 21. I asked her if she was registered to vote and excited about her first election, and she's like, I don't even know if I'm registered yet. And that was about a month ago. Tonight, Mr. Valdez, of all nights, she comes up to me and says, Hey, Andrew, you'll be proud. You'll be happy. I'm like, what? Why's that? And she said, my ballot is in the mail. It's on the way. And I don't know who she voted for. I didn't ask her, but she's smart enough. I have a feeling she voted for the right candidate, El Trompito, of course. But regardless of who she voted for, I'm just proud to have encouraged a young person of the younger generation to register and actually participate in the election. I hope that all your listeners and most people out there did the same. Whether it's one person, whether it's 10 people, we got to vote. It's our civic duty, and let's make America great again, hopefully.
Yeah, again. Andrew in Clinton, Illinois, WHOW. Thank you, brother. I agree with you. Young people, that's how I kind of felt when my daughter was calling me about her absentee ballot. And she was like, make sure you get everything in the mail. Let me know as soon as it comes, blah, blah, blah. And, the form to request it from a couple of weeks ago. And it's really encouraging. My younger daughter came over. This is her first opportunity to vote. And she said, I can't wait to vote tomorrow, and we're actually going to go vote together. So it really is energizing when you see somebody that's younger and interested in voting when, even they see what's going on with the current affairs. So thank you for pointing that out. Folks, we're going to come right back with the rest of your calls. Plus, I want to share just a quick word for somebody that's very near and dear in my life and has been a good mentor to me throughout the years. And, of course, open phones across America, your thoughts and more. I already see calls lining up. California, California, South Carolina, Montana, and more coming in. The lights are flashing. There's 3 lines open. Go for it, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So there's an article in the New York Times dated February 12th, 1984. The headline, Minister Policeman Finds Role Complimentary. Newark, New Jersey. For nearly a decade now, Leslie L. Jones Jr., a 35-year-old resident of East Orange, has balanced 2 roles. As a Newark police officer from Monday through Saturday, he patrols the city's South Ward, and on Sundays, he puts away his uniform, shield, and puts on his robe as an ordained Baptist minister, leading the Apocalyptic Christian Assembly in West Orange, and conducts Bible studies. Quote, I consider myself a Christian first and a cop second, Mr. Jones said, but I try to carry out my duties according to my beliefs. Both are part of one basic personality. To Mr. Jones, whose father was a Pentecostal minister, theology has been an integral part of his life. During the early years of his religious training, his pursuit of a career as a police officer was considered a breach of faith. Pentecostals, Mr. Jones said, hold strong negative views about bearing arms. When he was drafted by the Army in 1966, he registered as a conscientious objector. As a result of his 4-year tour of duty, which dovetailed with the Vietnam War, Jones began to reassess his religious ideology, saying, the military exposed me to people of other faiths who taught me that I could be a good Christian and carry a gun. Although he had a keen desire to enter ministry, after his service, he went on to become a cop, where he served for 37 years and simultaneously served for 37 years with the Air Force Reserve after his Army service. Today, I'm going to say I had the pleasure of celebrating Sergeant Jones's life, which came to an end here on Earth on October 26th, and he was laid to rest today. And I had a chance to see some of my old friends from the Newark Police Department chaplain office, known as the Office of Clergy Affairs. And it was really a moment to celebrate his life. When you live your life like Sergeant Jones did, there's nothing but celebration when it's time for you to go home. So, Sergeant Jones, I salute you on your end of watch. America, I'm coming right back with open phones across America. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, and happy to be here with you this Monday night, one evening before Election Day. Election Day 2024, the big day is finally here. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And lots to get into tonight, lots of calls from all over the place, and I'm looking forward to your calls tonight, of course, but tomorrow as well. Everybody that's in one of the battleground states or any state you're in, make sure if you never called in, tomorrow's the night to call in. Give us an update on what you saw, how it looks, what the scoop is like in your part of town. We'll be going live at 10 o'clock Eastern time. The polls close at 9 o'clock Eastern time in most time zones across the country, so we'll have a pretty fair idea of the beginning of the counting as, precincts start to come in, and we'll be bringing you the best election coverage in live radio because there's not going to be a ton of other live shows on there. Maybe some go live tomorrow night, but we're live every single night, and that's why, so we can bring you everything in real time. And we're going to get to your calls tonight as well. There's also some clips of audio that I want to play for you. Let me see, there's so much here. You got Hakeem Jeffries that's out there saying things. You got Jamie Raskin that's out there saying stuff. Doug Emhoff is, always saying something. But there is an interesting clip from Raskin. We'll get to that in the next one. But I want to get into this clip from Hakeem Jeffries. Listen to this.
Current Speaker Mike Johnson is also hitting the trailer hard. He's promising that Republicans are going to bring the federal government to heel if they take control of the Congress and the White House. What is the impact if the Republicans maintain control?
The extreme MAGA Republicans have clearly and unequivocally articulated what they will do to America moving forward. The extreme MAGA Republicans will take a blowtorch to Social Security. They will take a blowtorch to Medicare. They will take a blowtorch to the Affordable Care Act.
President Trump also appears to be laying the groundwork for contesting the election again if he loses. And your predecessor, Speaker Pelosi, made it clear yesterday that she thinks you need to be the speaker because she's concerned about what Speaker Johnson would do if he has the gavel on January 6th. Do you share that concern? What could he do?
The majority of current House Republicans voted not to certify the election in 2020. And so it's certainly a challenge. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't seem to be capable of unequivocally saying that they will certify the election and the verdict that is rendered by the American people. As House Democrats, that's what we will do. We believe in free and fair elections. We believe in the peaceful transfer of power. We believe in democracy, even when we disagree with the outcome.
Well, thank you, Hakeem Jeffries, for doing that, because I was concerned for a second that the president of the Senate, Kamala Harris herself, would potentially consider not certifying the election, right? Because you'll remember that this goes through both houses, and they say it's a formality. But Mike Pence had to, in his role as president of the Senate, because he was vice president of the United States, had a role on January 6th, right? And it's today we a lot of us are displeased. Others are saying, look, he did what he had to do. But there was a whole, revolt, if you will, against Mike Pence. Now, who's the Mike Pence of 2024? It's Kamala Harris. So now if Vice President Kamala Harris decides to say, well, as Vice President, I am not going to vote to certify these results because my buddy Jamie Raskin says that Trump is not qualified to take office, and I agree with him that Trump is not qualified to be president, then maybe she wants Jamie Raskin to do that, and maybe she won't vote to certify. So I'm guessing it's going to be the Speaker pro tem because she's actually the candidate, all right? But Vice President Pence was also the candidate back in the last election. So I don't know what happens there. I do know that all that being said and done, if it goes down to the Speaker of the House is likely going to vote to certify a Trump victory, right? And I think that's what everybody's angling for here is a victory for Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito. So I don't know what they're talking about, the Democrats and all this stuff they're making up, when they're the ones that have complained, have refused. I don't know. Does anybody remember when people were just yelling all across America, not my president, not my president? I didn't say that to Barack Obama. Did you? I didn't. So it was the Democrats. It was the left within the media, the left within academia, the left within our government, and the left within our electorate that was screaming, not my president. Everything he just accused Republicans of doing, his team has done. That's just a fact, not because I don't like their team. It's just true. So what do we do? Well, I think I'm going to predict, I'm going to put on my fortune teller hat here. Nobody's not voting to not certify the election. 3 triple negative, right? The election will be certified. It's my prediction. I don't know if we get the winner quick enough, but again, we're talking about January 6th, right? So tomorrow night, we don't have to certify anything. We also don't need tomorrow night for anybody to accept victory or admit defeat. There may be some places that are difficult to count. Why? Because we still have electronic voting machines, some of which may connect to the internet, some may not. And we don't want that. I think the best way forward in life is paper ballots that, maybe connected to your fingerprint or something like that, where you get a copy, they get a copy, and, there's a paper trail, and that's it. Now people say, we want it better. It's easier to tabulate if you have a computer. Some smart guy out there, I'm pretty sure, can come up with something. But I just don't think the current system we have is effective. Not at all. Not in the least. Anyway, I want to get your calls, your thoughts on that. Oh, plus, there was this whole story here. Hold on. Bear with me, folks. I wanted to get to this. I wanted to talk about this last hour, and I just really couldn't do it. But Trump, in that interview that I did with him back in January of last year, he mentioned that it's a disgrace that Mitch McConnell is the Senate Minority Leader. And McConnell, of course, has announced that he is stepping down. I think we have audio from that, from when he did that a couple of weeks ago. Listen to this.
Well, in all likelihood, this is the last time we'll see you guys until after the election. As I've said, I've been the majority leader and I've been the minority leader. Majority is a lot better. And so we have high hopes that will be the case for the next person who succeeds me in this job.
So Senate Republicans, because of that, are bracing for the biggest leadership shakeup in 20 years, according to the Washington Examiner. And that's coming after tomorrow's election, which, it doesn't matter which party controls the upper chamber. They're still going to need a Republican leader. McConnell's out, and thank God for that. If nothing else, we should be celebrating that. And, with him saying at the time, I'm no longer the young man sitting in the back hoping colleagues would remember my name. McConnell, who's 82, said, around the time of that clip that I just played, he said, it's time for the next generation of leadership. Who else talks about that? That's right, gold star for you. Que mala eres. You got to forgive me. I got a frog in my throat. Hopefully I still have a voice for tomorrow night for our big show, so I can gloat, hopefully. Senate Democrats, who face far fewer challenges to their leadership, will undergo their own game of musical chairs at the committee level, and that's expected to be figured out in December. So we'll see, based on the outcome of tomorrow, what direction that stuff goes in. But lots of interesting things coming to the House and coming to the Senate. Anyway, I want to get to a few more things. There was a great back and forth between Dana Bash and Tim Scott. It's about a minute and a half, where they're sparring over voter fraud and how the media's done nothing except spread misinformation. Just absolutely great clip between Senator Tim Scott and Dana Bash from CNN. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
But what I'm asking about is what if he doesn't win? And the fact of the matter is that Trump is already spreading false claims about cheating in Pennsylvania. He has repeatedly predicted a massive victory, even though polls show that the race is very close. He's setting the stage for his supporters not to believe the results if he loses. Do you want him to stop doing that?
I would never tell any candidate on the ballot to talk about what happens if they lose. Obviously, you're going to lean into the victory, especially
I
when the
appreciate
latest
that, Senator.
polls
Forgive me,
in battleground states
but spreading
says
false
that you're
rumors.
running forward. You're running ahead of your candidate.
Totally.
Listen,
But saying false
Dana,
things
you and I disagree
about
on this one.
fraud
Totally disagree on this
is
one.
not. You think it's okay to spread false rumors about fraud and undermine the integrity of the election, regardless of what happens?
Dana, the liberal media has done a better job of spreading misinformation
come on,
than
Senator.
any candidate I've seen so far. That's true. Listen, here's the fact. We're not seeing the coverage of 2 assassination attempts on CNN
We
against
did
Donald Trump.
wall-to-wall
We're not seeing the comments about Kamala Harris talking about fascists, calling Donald Trump a fascist.
John Kelly
We
called
should
him a
focus on,
fascist.
giving
His former
the American
chief of
people
staff.
the opportunity, giving, and she repeated it, giving people the
Well, wouldn't
opportunity
you,
to make
if
their own
Kamala
decisions.
Harris's former
That's
chief
what we
of staff
Americans-
called her a fascist? I would guess that you would repeat it too. And
Listen.
Donald Trump has called him one as well.
The bottom line is this, Dana. Bottom line is this. We should focus on the issues that the American people are talking about.
All right, America, welcome back. That was a back and forth between Dana Bash and Senator Tim Scott. And interesting, right? This back and forth about election fraud. They are expert. Doesn't matter. They say, but it's not that bad. Oh, it's never that bad. Oh, it's only a handful of buildings that are taken over by the Venezuelan gangs. Yada, 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 yada. Anything to try and discredit Trump. The only one that they're trying to minimize is Trump. Everything else is like, yeah, that's fine. You're good. You're good. Absolute insanity what's going on. Anyway, I want to go to Derek. He's calling us from Baxter, Minnesota. Derek, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to commend you. I just wanted to commend you on your awesomeness. Your show has totally put the heaviest angel on my right shoulder.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you to say. It's very kind of you. And big shout out to the folks in your neck of the woods, KROC, and every other affiliate that we have in Minnesota. Very kind indeed. Let us continue. Let's go to Michael, Pendleton, Oregon, KUMA. Go right ahead.
Rich, great talking to you. It's been a while since we talked. Got a change in my work schedule, so I was able to call in. I'm so glad before the election. I want to say I'm very proud of President Trump for everything he's gone through for our country, and he has laid everything on the line. And we're faced with 2 different directions. I've heard our friend Billy Cunningham say this, that this is probably the most important election since 1980. I remember that election very well. And Ronald Reagan saved our country. He turned around our country in 1980. And Donald J. Trump is going to do the same thing for America. I believe in voting on Election Day, and I'm going to vote tomorrow, bring my ballot, Oregon ballot here to the courthouse, which I live close by here in Pendleton. and proudly vote for Donald J. Trump. And like I said, as Ronald Reagan did in 1980, Donald J. Trump will do that for our country. And I wanted to add, there's two debates I wish I could see. I wish we could bring back a 1980 Ronald Reagan to debate Vice President Harris. And I would love to see your debate with your favorite congresswoman from the Bronx, AOC. I would pay money to see those debates.
Well, you know what? Maybe if anybody from AOC world is listening, all out crazy, I would love to do it. And if we could raise money and maybe like fill up a little theater or something like that and have people come and donate and buy a ticket to watch, and we could take that money and donate it to whatever cause is, the best cause to donate it to, I'd be happy to do that. I don't know if there's enough people interested in watching me in a small theater, but if we could put that type of thing together with AOC, our least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also known as AOC, All Out Crazy, if we could do that, I would absolutely love to do it. Michael, thank you, sir, for your call. I appreciate it. Really good man, and always great commentary. And let us go to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go for it.
What is up, Valley Val, Richie Val? What's up, brother?
You know how we do. Getting ready for a nice Trump victory tomorrow.
Ready on. Hey, party on, Garth.
That's it.
Party on, Garth. Hey, well, if you do, you won't be because of me, because I voted for the other side. And you know who I'm talking about.
That your girlfriend, Kamala Harris.
That's right. You got it. Are you ready for a revolution? Are you ready for a revolution? Kurt Franklin wanted me to ask you that. Are you ready for a revolution?
Do you want a revolution?
That's right. That's right. It's coming, baby. Get ready. Hey, by the way, I just want to know that tell Shakira she's right. My hips ain't lying, okay? My hips are not lying.
Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you, brother. I'm glad you're in a good mood before you get spanked tomorrow at the polls. Godspeed to you, brother. And let's see, where do we go from here? Nowhere, because the music's about to kick in. I'm coming right back, though. We got calls from California, Montana, Pennsylvania, and more, plus your calls coming up right now. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And it's open phones across America. I'm looking forward to it. Quick reminder before we go. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, either This Is America with Rich Valdez, which is our short half-hour-ish podcast that's, weekly, or the daily podcast of this radio show, which is America at Night with me, Rich Valdez. Make sure you subscribe to that. Many of you have left 5-star reviews. I'm so grateful for them. For those of you who haven't, give it a listen. Give it the review that you think it deserves. A lot of people give them 5-star reviews, and I appreciate that. And looking forward to you guys checking that out. And hit the subscribe button, because that's what it's all about. And that's how we'll keep in touch when I'm not on the air. Plus, I'll be doing a little video tomorrow for Election Day. I don't do a lot of videos, but I'll be doing a little video, so you can check that out wherever you find me on social media. Rich Valdez election video. Make sure you don't miss that. Anyway, folks, the music means I got to take a quick pause, but we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. Lots of conversation in the air tonight. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Coming right back.
Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
What is your reaction to the clip we saw?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's said this nonsense about sort of, war hawk before. But what he did a couple of days ago, he's never done before. Taking the step of saying 9 rifles shooting her in the face, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows it's a threat. It's an
direct
attempt
threat.
to intimidate.
Yeah.
Obviously, the intimidation won't work. But what he's doing, frankly, is every day when I'm out there, I'm talking about his lack of fitness, and especially making sure people remember what he did.
Yes.
While he watched television as our Capitol was attacked for over 3 hours, he watched police officers be brutally beaten. He was told the vice president had been evacuated. He said, "So what?" People were rushing in, pleading with him, "Tell the mob to leave," and he wouldn't. And that level of depravity, he knows he has no defense to that.
That, of course, Liz Cheney firing back after El Trompito made some comments about her. And we have those comments, I believe, right? Do we have them, Count Delacula? Yeah. And we're going to get them for you. But they made these comments, or Trump made these comments about Liz Cheney being a war hawk, and that, would be a lot easier for her or a lot harder for her to be a war hawk, or easier for her to be more understanding if she was putting herself on the line. Listen to this.
I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. When the guns are trained on her face. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, "Oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy." But she's a stupid person.
So there you go. She is a stupid person, is what he says. And she went on with her friends at The View. Listen to this.
And I also think history is going to look back at all of this, and the people that have gone along, the people who have supported, what he's saying every day and what they know he will do, they'll have to explain that to themselves and their kids and grandkids.
Their kids and their grandkids. So that's Liz Cheney on The View. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this stuff, because I don't think he was making any veiled threat. He wasn't saying that he or anybody else should shoot her. He was saying she wouldn't be so quick to do those things if she was willing to give her a rifle and put her with 9 rifles trained on her. Saying, put her on that front line. Put her in the line of fire and see if she still reacts the same way. It's not a threat. I don't think it's a threat. Didn't seem like a threat. I think a threat was when he was meeting with Abdul, right? Abdul, the leader of the Taliban, and showed him a photo of his house in the middle of crosshairs and said, "Don't harm a single hair on the head of any American soldier, or else." I think that was a threat. But what Liz Cheney went through, come on, piece of cake. Anyway, I want to get your reaction to that stuff and so much more. Let's see, where do we go? Who is the next one in line? Let's go to Pedro, Tarzana, California. Where are you listening from, Pedro? What's your radio station?
Hey, how come you're not talking about the Jeffrey
Pedro, hold on a
Epstein
second.
case?
You sound like a troll. When you don't answer my questions, that's rude. It's like you come into somebody's house and say, "Hey, how are you?" You're supposed to turn around and say, "Hey, I'm pretty good. How are you doing? Hey, by the way, how come you're not talking about?" You're coming right out the door like a troll. I have no problem with trolls, but you gotta work with me here. So you're in California. Now, what radio station do you listen to?
K-Rock.
Out of Minnesota?
No, out of L.A.
There's not a K-Rock in L.A.
What do you think of the Jeffrey Epstein tapes?
I haven't had a chance to see them. I'm guessing you were there and you have insider information, but I'm not into that type of thing, Pedro. But thank you so much. You got to do a better job with your trolling. It's got to be more entertaining. It's got to be a little less, school shooterish, because you're giving school shooter vibes here, honestly. Thanks for your call, pal. Let's continue. I want to go with Blue calling us from Lockwood, Nevada. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Hey, Rich, you have one of the best shows in the world, dude. I love
thanks.
your show, and all my friends across America love you, too. Thank you very much, sir. I wanted to let you know that I did early voting in Story County, Nevada. on October 19th. They had brand new computers. The guy was brandishing in them and talking about how great they were. We pushed our cards into it, and it shut the whole system down. And
the voting card?
Yeah, the voting card shut all the terminals down. And everybody's like, what's going on? I thought
what happened?
These were brand new. And the guy was just freaking out. And they finally got them all back up and running, but something's up.
How long did that take?
It took about 10 minutes,
Oh,
and
so
everybody
that's not
was
so bad.
upset. Yeah,
Well, I think you're going to
don't
see a
know.
lot of that stuff. I don't know that the technology is incredibly reliable. I remember being a kid and watching my dad vote, and then I got to vote once, maybe twice, using the machine that they used when I was a kid, which was a big gray-looking, tank-looking machine. And to cast your ballot, you had to lower the lever. I think it was a big red lever, as I remember it, and you'd have to lower it diagonally, like on a 45-degree angle across the entirety of the machine, and that was it. And I guess it punched a hole in a card. The good old hanging chads, and things were better when there was hanging chads. I think at least then these court cases made it to court. Now after hanging chads, nobody makes it to court anymore. So I hear you. Listen, you gotta hold on to what's going on in Nevada. Keep giving them everything you've got. Get everybody out to vote. Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. This is it, right? Michigan. These are the battleground states, and you've got to stick with it. But thank you, Blue, for the call. I appreciate it. Very, very kind of you. God bless you. And let's see, where do we go? I want to go to Sarah giving us a call from Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go for it.
Hey, great show. Jerome better watch out because no matter what happens, if Trump wins, there's going to be a wonderful revolution because he's got some revolutionary ideas about putting America first and taking care of people. And I'll tell you what, if he loses, with the track record the Democrats have of being tyrannical and corrupt, that just sows the seeds for revolution down the 40, 50 years, man. You take people's recourse away, the freedom of speech. He might get the revolution he didn't wish would happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a Trump revolution, right? I hear what you're saying. Now, let me ask you, how are things looking in Indiana, in your neck of the woods? What's the vibe like?
Well, I'm in South Central Indiana, and I mean, places like Bloomington are liberal, but the rest of this part of Indiana is completely Trump. I think if there's any nefarious things that are going to happen, I would say it's in the Chicagoland area, in the northwestern part that's maybe more liberal, Buttigieg territory. But here, it's just Trump territory. But, like I say, the local Democrats have their signs up, and no one's pressing them or ripping their signs off or giving them trouble. So it's funny how conservatives seem to be able to respect their rights, but then you get in a Democrat majority area, and people with Trump signs get them stolen, and all sorts of things happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, do you see a lot of the Democrats going after Republicans and trolling them and being just kind of vitriolic, or vice versa?
No. Down here, the liberals are in a minority, so they're on their good behavior. And there are some of them that had Harris Walt signs that took them down. I think they realized that, and then they put up a local Democrat candidate. You know what I mean? But no, they. Let me tell you something. When they're minority, all their guts flee. All that hate goes out. It's only when they're in the majority that they start shining their butt.
Yeah, and Sarah, let me ask you. Do you think that there's any truth or seriousness to this Jamie Raskin idea that they're not going to certify the election and try and strong-arm the American people into a Harris-Walz presidency?
Well, I wouldn't put anything past the Democrats. I mean, 2020 was sure spurious because I worked second shift, and I was up after work till about 3 in the morning, and I saw how Trump had huge leads in Pennsylvania and Michigan, and suddenly they flipped the next day. So I put nothing past the Democrats because they're so hardcore to the left now, and they think by any means necessary, fair means or foul.
What do you think about the election integrity efforts that the Republican Party has put into play with new chairperson, co-chairperson Lara Trump, and her counterpart, Chairman Whatley?
Well, I think it's a great idea, but here's the problem. I feel like the conservatives are willing to respect the rights of Democrats, but in Democrat-controlled area, because they make up so much of the civic infrastructure, it is going to be really hard if there are shenanigans going on to affect any justice or get judges to hear the cases. So it's the Democrat-controlled territories that I'm really worried about. I'm all for trying to maintain integrity, and I wish them well. The simple fact is a lot of Democrats don't see what they're doing as wrong. They think that Trump is so evil that he must be stopped. So,
right.
And there's a lot of people, it seems like they think nothing of breaking laws. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. I hope that you're wrong, but I don't know that you are. Sarah, thank you for your call. God bless you. Great talking to you. Folks are going to pause right here. We're going to come right back. The rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, to the trolls we go. To the phones we go. Let's go to Kevin, Inglewood, Florida, WENG. Kevin, go for it.
Hey, Rich, I was wondering what contingency plans are in place in order to stop the steal. I know that there's lawsuits already attempting to throw out ineligible voters, and there will probably be a lot of recounts after the polls close. But other than that, is there anything else Trump can do to secure victory? Thanks.
Yeah, you got it, brother. Well, part of what I think is happening here is what they've been talking about from the very beginning. There were some lawsuits that a few lawyers that I know were involved in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, to tighten things up. I think Georgia has seen the biggest amount of change when it came to election integrity and protecting their vote. And some of them didn't go through, right? There were certain things, like in Michigan, that they thought that with the that's the word, it's escaping me. Anyway, bottom line is, with the preventing people from voting if they didn't have the right citizenship, et cetera. That's not happening, right? So that has happened, and they're counting somebody's ballots. Bottom line is, I think that there's you can call it election integrity or stop the steal or whatever you want to call it. There's a movement afoot within the Republican Party, and we had Tommy Pigott on the show earlier tonight talking about it a little bit, with 500 lawyers ready to go in the rapid response team in each of the battleground states. So you're talking about 3,500 lawyers that are ready to go. They're on deck. They're there, ready to file whatever briefs have to be filed, ready to make sure that things don't happen if they don't have to happen, and to handle what has to be done. So oftentimes the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. I think that's important, and I think that's right in this scenario. So my hope is that we won't need and see so much of that. The extent of fraud and ballot stuffing and things like that could be far and wide, but that's not, I don't know any of that, right? I can't prove any of that. So I think that's like saying, there could be a mass killing, a massacre in any big city on any given day of the week. It's possible, but it's not likely. So I don't feel like there's a reason to believe that this is happening right now. That might be me being naive, but I think right now the Republicans have a majority, even though it's super slim. They have a majority in Congress. How'd we get that? It's an electoral majority. We won it through elections. My friend Vicky Palladino who is a councilwoman from the city of New York in Queens, Whitestone, Queens. She's been on this program. She's terrific. She won twice already. And the second time was way bigger than the last time. You're talking about a real landslide victory for her as a conservative, Trump conservative. So I think that we've proven that Republicans can win elections. And I think tomorrow is going to be proof yet again. I don't think we need to prove or disprove that there's going to be cheating or how we get over the cheating. I think the bigger part is just proving how we win, if that makes any sense. Thanks for the call, brother. Let me see. Where do I go? I'm going to pause right here. Coming right back for the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with very, very limited time, so keep your comments very short and straight to the point. Let's go to Trey in Dallas, Texas, listening online. Trey, go for it very quickly.
Hey, Rich, thank you so much for taking my call. Just want to say God bless you, and I appreciate your show. And I appreciate all the people out there praying for America, praying for revival among God's people.
Amen. That's part of what we have to do is pray every day. Revival is necessary. Continual renewal, right? And getting closer and closer to God. Trey, thank you, brother. Godspeed to you. Let's go to James, Danbury, Connecticut, WLAD. Great station. James, go for it.
Good evening, Rich. I'll be very brief. I just want to say the guest you had on before, the one about turning his life around, the former mayor.
Oh, yeah, Kwame Kilpatrick.
That was very, very heartfelt, and I love when people turn their lives around like that. Thank you very much for showcasing that, because we need God, and He's coming, and all those black
I don't think we've
people
needed anything more in life, right? More than we need Trump, we need God in America. James in WLAD country, thank you, sir. Let's go to Debbie, Grand Isle, Nebraska, KRVN. Go for it quickly.
Hi, thanks again. It's so great to talk to you. My concern as being from Nebraska is that we do have electoral college that is split, one of two states, and everybody's concerned about Pennsylvania and Ohio, and really we were worried in Nebraska that we do have one blue vote already counted for, because that happened during the
Right.
Obama era, that we did turn that color. But we just, again, pray for everybody that Nebraska is not the place where we have to turn it, that we already know possibly that we're Trump supporters. But our question is between Fisher and Osborne, and they are veterans.
Are they running neck and neck? They probably are. We got to keep it focused on El Trompito to try and get out of the mess we're in with inflation and the border. Debbie, thank you. And let's go to your counterpart in Vermont, Deborah on WVMT. Deborah, what's going on there? Quickly.
Okay. There's, in the past two elections, 90,000 votes come in, and Vermont, of course, is very liberal, Democrat.
Do you think the Democrats take Vermont, or do you think Trump has a shot to take the whole thing?
Well, 33,000 of the 90,000 voted for Trump in both elections.
Let's hope that he comes through incredibly strong. Deborah, thank you for the call. Shout out to WVMT. And with seconds on the clock, let's go to Jake in Cranberry on KDKA. What happened to the Chinese balloons? Well, Jake, I think they got shot out of the sky by Biden after he let them do all the picture taking that they wanted to do. I got to go here, brother. Thank you for the call. Shout out to KDKA, where Roberto Clemente was with El Trompito earlier tonight. Folks, it's Rich Valdez. Shout out to David in San Francisco. Sorry I couldn't get to you. Paul in Zanesville. Hasta la próxima. God bless you, America.